Welcome to our Windows 11 Readiness. My name is Brian Dam. My official title is Patch Lover Extraordinaire here at Patch My PC. But don't fear, I'm only kicking off this webinar. I'm going to hand it off to actual real professionals that will give you meaningful information. But the one thing I will tell you right at the get-go, you have 412 days to go ahead and retire Windows 10 and install Windows 11. And if you are here and you've already fully made your transition, I don't know what you're doing here, but welcome anyways. We'd love to have you. Our agenda is pretty straightforward. We are joined by a bunch of people here. We're going to kick off with our Advanced Insight team. They're going to show you some of the things that they've built, specifically within ConfigMgr and the reporting they built around it, and some help that they can give you in terms of that transition. We are joined by Adam Nichols, a senior product manager of Windows AutoPatch. He's going to give us an overview of Intune and AutoPatch's solutions for that same kind of transition. And then I'm excited to say that we are joined by Jorgen Nilsson. He is a fellow Microsoft MVP and senior consultant at Win10. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, Jorgen, but he's going to kind of tell us how this shit kind of really gets done in the real world. It's great. We have some reporting, but Jorgen is going to kind of tell you this is what you have to really deal with, and the things you're going to have to do, whether you like it or not. So before I hand it over, just some very brief housekeeping. Absolutely, yes, this is being recorded and will be shared on YouTube as soon as Colin takes out all the inappropriate things we say. We have operators standing by to take your calls. If you want an actual answer, though, go ahead and down and click the Q&A section at the bottom and ask the question there. That's the only way we're going to guarantee you some kind of an answer. If you just want to have fun, go ahead and stay in chat, and we can kind of crap on each other there. And that is the end of my intro. With that, I hand it over to John Quirker, the Director of Development for Advanced Insight, to get us going.
Thank you very much, Brian. And hello, everyone. So as Brian very kindly mentioned, the reason this has come about is because as we were running around a lot of conferences during conference season last year, there was a lot of talk about Windows 11 readiness. I was going to say, just by way of introduction, actually, for those of you who I haven't spoken to before, as Brian said, I'm Director of Development here for the Advanced Insights team. So I head up the team of guys who work on the development of our reporting solutions. And a big topic for us last year when we were at conferences was people looking for us to help with particularly the problem of looking at where your devices in the current environment might be able to support Windows 11, and in particular where you've got devices that won't support Windows 11. And so off the back of some of those conversations, we developed some code to do what we think is a bit of a better job of presenting the Windows 11 readiness data that Microsoft provide inside of ConfigMgr in Advanced Insights. So we'll have a bit of a look at around that shortly. But off the back of those conversations and us starting to develop the Windows 11 readiness stuff, we found some limitations with how those tools that are provided to us by Microsoft today function, and just in our day-to-day work, have seen some frustration with being able to adopt Windows 11. Broadly, we were chatting just before the webinar about how, on the whole, it's actually pretty straightforward, and the technology is available to us these days to move between 10 and 11 are vastly superior to the types of things that those of you who've been around this as long as I have and Jorgen will remember things like the BDD and an MDT and this kind of thing. So we don't tend to have to get involved in that sort of stuff quite so much these days. But nevertheless, there's still some complications with it. And so time is marching on in terms of how long you've got to adopt Windows 11. There is a reasonable user experience change for the users to get used to, even if it's only basic stuff like the way that the new start menu appears and some of the functionality with basic stuff like Explorer and the right-click options and those kinds of things. And so so that's why it was great that we could get Jorgen along, because he's going to give us some tips and tricks and notes in the field on customization and deployment options and those sorts of things. But I thought I'd just quickly set the scene on the next slide, please, Gav, with some of the requirements that we have for Windows 11. So basically, what we're going to do is I'm going to just run through that very quickly and talk briefly about the kind of readiness checks stuff that we have when we're looking at devices in the environment that are not currently running Windows 11 and whether they may be able to. And then we've very recently published a blog article which Gavin kindly wrote for us, which looks in some depth as to how those tools actually hang together, because they're not particularly well documented. So we're going to have a bit of a deep dive into how some of that works. And we're then going to hand over to Andrew Lukaszewski, who's another member of my team here, who will show us some additional stuff that we've been working on around some more advanced reporting with ConfigMgr and Windows 11 Readiness. And then we're going to hand over to Adam, who has very kindly joined us from Microsoft, who'll talk us through some of the details around AutoPatch and some of the Intune functionality that's available in this space. And then, as I say, Jorgen will then round us all up with some of his very learned expertise around real-world experience with adopting Windows 11. And then we'll have a bit of Q&A at the end. So the first bit of my little content is that we will have a look at the kind of capabilities that we've got for 11 for now. So next one, please, Gav. When Microsoft first announced Windows 11, it was a little bit controversial because, as you may recall, and it's been a while now, but you may recall that there was quite a bit of fuss around some relatively modern processors, including some Xeons and stuff like that, not being supported. And so there's basically a cutoff point in terms of support for 8th generation Intel and later. Technically, you can install Windows 11 on other devices, but if you're concerned about it being an in-support version of Windows 11, then that's not going to fly. If you want to upgrade from Windows 10, those devices also have to be on version 2004 at least and later. There's some minor hard disk requirement stuff, which only really tends to be a problem in virtual machines and on some specialist devices where they're very small, so you need to have at least 64 gig of storage in the device and 15 gig of free space. And we have found customers where that's actually a real challenge, particularly on tablets and stuff like that. Obviously, you need support for UEFI, but that tends to be the case with Windows 10 these days anyway, so that's not an issue. You need TPM 2.0, and then there's a bunch of applications and drivers where you may have some problems where you need to do some pre-flight stuff to take out even some really basic things like the Microsoft PDF printer from Windows 10 is a software block and a lot of that kind of stuff. So there's several kind of pre-flight requirements that we need to make sure that we meet. None of which will be much of a surprise to you, I'm sure. And then in terms of how we're going to adopt this, Jorgen will get into this in a lot more detail, but I personally am an SCCM guy by trade, and so I very much like an SCCM upgrade task sequence, predominantly because it allows you to do a bunch of pre-flight stuff to improve your success rate. So in particular, that tends to be around cleaning up things like unused profiles and removing applications that you know are not compatible, and just generally normalizing the estate. And you can also incorporate things like BIOS upgrade and BIOS reconfiguration and that kind of stuff into a task sequence, which gives you a lot more power if you need to do those kinds of things. And so you can have a one-hit, zero-touch type of implementation. We still have got some customers who are doing wipe and reload using ConfigMgr for Windows 11, but that tends to be in situations where the existing estate is a bit of a mess and they're looking to do a sort of large-scale normalization. And so zero touch in that scenario is still a possibility. It's more complex, arguably potentially slower, but the advantage is that you have a very known state after the fact. That said, we do find that that's a sort of uncommon scenario these days, which I lament because I used to be the package mapping king of the world. And then most commonly, and we see this very successfully implemented these days, and I'm sure Adam will have more to say about this as well, just using feature update deployment policy out of Intune, basically deploying the next operating system as if it was just a Windows update. Plenty of advantages to this. It's extremely lightweight. There's a good chance that the devices won't have to download as much content. And the downside to that potentially is that the reporting options available in Intune are significantly inferior compared to what we have with Configuration Manager, but the world seems to have got used to that for the most part. And the end user experience, which we may look at in a little bit of detail in a moment, is perhaps not as elegant as the options. You don't have as much power in terms of what you might notify the users of when it comes to using that kind of approach as well. These are things that we kind of need to bear in mind when we're doing this OS deployment work. But we basically have more options these days. We have more configuration capability. We have more tools. But a lot of our legacy kind of infrastructure is potentially still appropriate, but also lots of new things that we can make use of. And so with that, I think I will hand over to Gavin, who can introduce himself and give us a little bit of info on what he does day to day before he gets into a little bit of detail. We thought it might be interesting just to get a bit of an idea of where you're at on your Windows 11 journeys. And so if you fancy filling in this little survey, which is scientifically structured to ensure that we get accurate and useful information, then that would be really interesting to me. I'll have a look at those later. But in the meantime, thanks very much for attending, and I'll leave you in the capable hands of Gavin Speed. Over to you, Gavin.
Thanks, John. Hi, everyone. Yes, I'm Gavin Speed. I'm a software engineer here at Patch My PC in the Advanced Insights team. Been with the team now for about 18 months or so, and thoroughly enjoying myself. As John said, the focus over the next year or so is going to be Windows 11 upgrades, preparing ourselves for that. And what we're going to look at is initially the Configuration Manager Update Readiness dashboard, which was shipped in version 2309. So I'm just going to switch view here. Just give me 1 second. And this is the Windows 11 Upgrade Readiness. So potentially there might be people on the call who haven't upgraded yet. And I would advise you to do so. But on first kind of look at the dashboard, there's some pretty useful and pretty basic information available to us. It uses what it calls upgrade experience indicators to flag machines which are suitable for upgrade or not suitable for upgrade. And there's a few different bits and pieces around why the reasons have potential blockers for the upgrade as well. So this is the kind of the dashboard, and what I want to kind of just spin through next is the some of the components that build this dashboard view that are tucked away in the background. So just going to load up the next thing. So within the Windows client operating system, we have what's called the Microsoft Compatibility Appraiser, and this has kind of been part of the Windows OS for quite some time now, and this runs quite frequently. I think normally on a daily basis, and it consumes data from Microsoft to perform basically compatibility assessment of the machine. One of the things that's key to that process running is the Appraiser SDB file. And the client obtains if you like, the latest version of this file, which contains all the rules and definitions which are relevant for the latest block lists, should we say. And then it uses the telemetry run list to understand how to run those lists. Now, it's a little bit of a Pandora's box really at the moment still, of what is actually contained within the SDP and how to parse it correctly. It's not very well documented, so there's generally little known about how it all works fully. But it's an SDP file which is consumed by the compatibility appraiser. When that's executed, there's a number of output data that we see. There's these bin files here, and you'll see for each bin file there is a version just before the end file extension there. So for 21H2, CO21H2, and these values generally mean the internal code name for the particular version of Windows that is being worked on. Again, very little documentation around that, but the output that is used here in turn is used to populate some registry files, and the target version upgrade experience indicators are populated with various values and properties as a result of the appraiser process. Where ConfigMgr comes into play is using the upgrade experience indicators SMS class. And what happens there is these values get written into WMI with some properties that indicate whether the device is suitable for the particular version, for the experience indicator. And we use like a traffic light system, if you like, red, green, amber, orange, which represent the different states supported for the supported versions of Windows 11. With these values in place, Configuration Manager and its regular hardware inventory sweeps these up and stores them into the Configuration Manager database, and is then using those values is essentially building the dashboard view that we got here today. In the next part, which I'm about to just hand over to Andy, is we've got some extensions on this that we feel can enhance this experience with additional properties. On that note, we'll swing over to Andy. Thanks, everyone.
Cheers, Gav. Okay, so I just need to swap to my screen that I'm sharing here. I believe I'm still sharing that. So, hi guys, my name's Andrew Lukashevsky. I've been working with PatchMyPC now for a couple of years. Prior to that, I've done my time as a config manager consultant, all the way from good old days of SMS 2003 through config manager 2007, and now right up to current branch. During that time, I've seen my fair share of OS migrations and OS upgrades using all sorts of crazy, weird and wonderful mechanisms, task sequences, USB sticks, standalone media, USMT, the lot. So more recently, I've been focusing on advanced insights reporting. I know the data set really well in Configuration Manager. I've been working with SQL Server for some time now, familiar with getting the data out of the database that we're interested in, and trying to put that into something that looks nice for you guys by the Advanced Insights product. So we obviously have a console integration for Advanced Insights, so you can build this into your Config Manager console. Obviously, there's knowledge base articles for how to accomplish that. But in the Advanced Insights dashboard and reporting solution, under the operating system section, we have a Windows 11 Readiness dashboard. This dashboard brings in all of the data that Gav was explaining with the compatibility and the appraiser process, coming from WMI on the clients by hardware inventory, and then eventually appearing in the Config Manager database. So there's nothing particularly we haven't extended anything here. This is all sort of raw ConfigMgr data. We have just made it a little bit more presentable. It's certainly a lot more useful to understand than the inbuilt ConfigMgr dashboard, and a little bit prettier to look at. So I'll just give you a quick run through of this here. This is primarily to use to assess how you are doing with your Windows 10 to Windows 11 upgrades. So the whole focus and numbers here that you see are based on Windows 10 and Windows 11 devices only. So you won't see servers and non-workstation OS and Windows 7 devices in here. This is basically everything that's just sort of ready to go, that you're going to be going from Win10 to Windows 11. So we've got a straight number of the number of Windows 11 devices that you've got in your environment currently, and with a progress bar. So if you're running tens of thousands of machines, obviously your aim will be to get that progress bar moving along as you go through your Windows 10 to Windows 11 migration project. We have an unappraised number. So this will be devices which haven't yet returned any hardware inventory that contains the appraisal data. So maybe those devices are offline, or they've got some sort of hardware inventory problem, or maybe they're not running the appraiser properly. But that'll be something to drill into and look into that and see which of those 4 devices are. So these are some are virtual machines. Some machines have not been on for a while. So you can pass that list on to tier 1 help desk or whatever to find out what's going off with those. We've got a number of machines which are ready for an upgrade to Windows 11. So these are Windows 10 client devices that are essentially have ran the appraiser and have told us that they are meet the requirements, and that these technically should be able to be upgraded to Windows 11 without much trouble. We've got a statistic here for machines which cannot upgrade. So these are machines where the appraisers ran against the compatibility SDB file, flagged some issues. So that could be processor, memory, hard disk space, UEFI, TPM version, the usual sort of stuff that we see in the Appraiser result, app compact results. And we'll just present these in two charts for you. So you essentially get a chart for the ones which can't upgrade and can upgrade, and a chart for the reasons why various machines can and cannot upgrade. We have also got a little drop down as well. So if for whatever reason you're not going to go to the latest version of Windows 23H2 or 22H2, you can just swap between these, and this will give you an output of just the devices appraiser data against that Windows 10 version. There is another version of Windows 11 coming soon. I think that's 24H2, and that'll appear in here as the next Advanced Insights build incorporates that. We've got a table, straight list here that you can export if you want to work with that separately. So this contains devices which have run the appraiser data and flagged some sort of issue. So we've got status red, I think, pretty much for all of these here. And essentially, there's a description at the side of each one that gives us the reason why some of these have failed the Windows 11 upgrade compatibility test. So CPU family, the memory, disk space, etc. All of those are just highlighted TPM. And that's there for you just to browse through and take a look at. So with this dashboard here, it will give you a good heads up of where you are currently with your existing compatibility of devices, and how you are progressing through to your Windows 11 rollout. So as you deploy more, the more this will turn green, which is of course what you're looking for. There are, as John mentioned, a couple of mechanisms, quite a few mechanisms in ConfigMgr that we can migrate to Windows 11 from Windows 10. Obviously, one of the options is to go through a good old task sequence. So essentially, we've got a Windows 11 upgrade task sequence. So some of you will see this sort of basic thing before, where it's just a fairly simple task sequence process. checks readiness for upgrade. We've got some basic basic requirements here. So it's got to be AC power, it's got to be TPM, and the memory has got to be above a certain amount, etc. And then obviously if it meets those, it'll run through the rest of the upgrade process. We'll not go into that here, but essentially, you'll customize this and build this according to your environment to tweak it and make it work for you guys. So you can deploy that to your machines and see how that goes. One of the other ways we can do that is by the software updates mechanism. So if you are synchronizing feature upgrades, or feature updates as they're called here, so that'd be the upgrades classification in your software update point, you'll eventually get this data coming in here. So we have at the top of the list here our Windows 11 23H2 feature upgrade, which is currently showing as required by 6 machines installed on 3. And we've got a deployment of that going out to our feature upgrade test collection. And we'll take a look at what that looks like on the devices. So I can flip through to a couple of virtual machines I've got here. So we've got a device here where we have the upgrade task sequence sat ready and waiting. I've just tried to run this before just to make sure the demo gods don't let me down. But this device, it's just a virtual machine, and it's essentially under specification. So we've only given it 2 gig of memory, but other than that, it meets the processor requirements. It's got TPM enabled on it, and this will fail if we run a retry on here. It'll just take it 30 seconds or so. This will fail the prereq checks that we've built into the task sequence at the beginning. So that's something you'd incorporate just as part of your standard upgrade task sequence process. We'll wait for that to pop up. Here we go. So check readiness for upgrade, and straight away it's failed on that step. We've now got a nice little button. I'm not exactly sure how long this has been around, but I do like it now. So we can click the inspect button and we can see which of the readiness checks that it's failed. And if there's multiple failures, you'll get those listed here as well. So computer memory is below 4 meg. Nice and simple, easy enough for whoever's running the task sequence to understand that. And then there's nothing more we can do with that. We can see in the app compat appraiser, so Gavin showed us the scheduled task for the compatibility appraiser here, which has been running and run before. We've got some registry keys that are buried away under Windows NT current version app compat markers, and these show that we've got the reasons why the upgrade would have been blocked if it was by software update mechanism. But this also obviously applies to if you're trying to do it by upgrade task sequence as well. This will be checked by the setup routine anyway. So blocked by memory. So that was the problem here. Now, so I can sort of attempt to overcome that and just change the memory on the virtual machine. I can bump that up a little bit here. So let's change that to 4 gig. Keyboard. Give that a second. That shows us okay. And then what we can do is click that off again. Whilst it's doing that, I'll set the appraiser to task to run again. That also takes 30 seconds or so. So we'll wait for that to go. Okay, so the appraiser's run. If I just refresh these registry keys here, we'll see now that we shouldn't have any blockers. Yeah, there you go. So the memory block by memory is gone, and also this upgrade process would work just fine as well. So that would be the task sequence mechanism. So I'm going to leave that alone, a lit firework, and not go back to that. And let's take a look at a device which we want to upgrade by a software update. So one of the struggles with performing a software update based upgrade is that sometimes you may be expecting the software update to appear in here, and for whatever reason it's not. So that's generally because the appraiser hasn't confirmed that the device meets the requirements. So in this case, we can take a look at this device and we can see it's blocked by memory and it's blocked by CPU. So again, with this device, I think I've already changed the, oh no, so CPU not. So we can shut this device down. We'll change the CPU and memory specifications on this. There we go, file settings, So we're going to, memory is already good. Give it 2 cores, TPM's on, start that back up again. And we'll wait for that to launch up back up. Should just take a few moments. There we go. In we go as an admin. And so what we're hoping to accomplish here is the Windows task that is set for the appraiser. We're going to get that to rerun and reevaluate our new device configuration. So in here, application experience, already running. So one of the triggers must be a device restart. So that's good for us. I don't need to kick that off manually. We'll give that a little while to finish. But in the software center, we do have the software update targeted at this device. Give that a moment. There we go. But it's not going to show yet. So there's 2 things that need to happen. So first, the appraiser needs to rerun in order to evaluate that the update is valid for the device. And that will configure those registry keys. And the second thing that we're interested in, anticipation of that completing, is we're going to run our ConfigMgr client action for the deployment eval for the software updates. So we know the software updates targeted at this device. We just want it to reevaluate and hopefully display that. So that's still running. And I'm also going to open CM trace, anybody's favorite. And we've got the Windows Update handle log in the CCM logs. So hopefully this will have finished running anytime soon. Tell you what, let's get regedit open as well, and then we can verify those registry keys have been changed. Machine, Microsoft, Windows NT, current version, app compat flags, compat markers, 23H2. There we go. Okay, that looks better. Zeros. So no blockers, which probably means this is finished. Excellent. And then we can trigger this software update deployment eval cycle. So I'll run that now. That will, of course, kick off a little 2-minute scan on the Windows Update handler. And whilst that's doing that, I'm not going to stand on ceremony waiting for that. Oh, it's come up already. Look at that. There you go, straight away. So the Windows Update scan ran after the appraiser, and now we've got the option essentially to hit and run this feature upgrade by the software updates mechanism. And then your mileage may vary depending on how you've got your distribution points and your content distribution for the software updates, whether it's come from Microsoft, etc., etc. And you've got Delta upgrades enabled or not. But yeah, have fun with that. Okay, and the last thing I wanted to talk about was just in SCCM. So in SQL, so my role at Patch My PC here on the Advanced Insights team is primarily to make dashboards for our product. So essentially the console extension in here. And there's a couple of areas in SQL and ConfigMgr which house that data. We're going to be making some revisions and some improvements to our Windows 11 readiness dashboard using some of this extra data, particularly coming from the app compat and the Appraiser process. So we've got, as Gav mentioned, the upgrade experience indicators. So essentially this is just a straight list of devices and the data that we're seeing for the upgrade experience indicators. You can get at this yourselves just through standard SQL querying, and this will give you almost the same data that Advanced Insights is formatting nicely for you. So again, you see the memory flags, CPU, etc., and the red and green status of the upgrade process and which version of Windows 11 that applies to. And the other set of data, which we've not yet done anything with in Advanced Insights, but we certainly will be doing, is failure data coming from the feature upgrade process. So if you've deployed your Windows 11 upgrade using the second process I showed, so through the software updates mechanism, if the feature upgrade fails for some reason, you'll get automatically back, I believe through hardware inventory, the failure reason data that comes back from the modern setup wizard, essentially the setup diag tool that runs as part of the upgrade process. And this returns error codes. Oh, no, it's gone now. Look, somebody's done that to me. I don't know who shut down the SCCM server. That wasn't very good, was it? Okay. So in that would have been the list of upgrade codes and upgrade failure codes for attempts by software update mechanism. And essentially what we're going to be doing is building into Advanced Insights a set of extra dashboard functions and reports which use that post upgrade attempt data to sort of enrich the Windows 11 upgrade readiness dashboard beyond what it provides already. And he said, I think that's it for me. That was all I wanted to talk to you guys about. So I can hand over to back to John or Gav, I believe.
In fact, on to Adam, I think.
Ah, there you go.
Thank you, gentlemen. I'm excited to be here. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Adam Nichols. I'm on the Windows AutoPatch team. We live under Windows Servicing and Delivery in Microsoft. So a lot of what we're talking here is been my day-to-day life for the last couple of years while I've been on this team. Prior to being on this team, like many of the people on this call, I spent many years in the field with Microsoft working with some of our largest customers adopting primarily Windows 10. I was just thinking about this today. We released Windows 10 in July of 2015. So we're coming up on that 10-year mark when people are asking about, wow, are we ending end of service so quickly? It's been 10 years. So many of us are like, we look back, we're like, oh man, we did a lot of those upgrades from Windows 7 to Windows 10. And it feels like not that long ago. So with what I'm going to be talking about today is really a lot of the tools that exist in the portal in Intune, WFB reports today that if you're leveraging these services, you can take advantage of today to help you make that next step into getting to Windows 11. The team talked about some great insights with Patch My PC, with SCCM. We have a lot of customers still using those tools, and they're awesome. Some of these tools will work and partner with those, and some organizations are solely on Intune or solely on cloud. And these tools will probably work out better or work out well for those scenarios. One of the things is I have my screen share up here is a couple of the great tools that we have for you. And, you know, we were talking about how to deploy feature updates. If you're using Intune, one thing that we built in Windows AutoPatch just really quickly is the ability to create phased rollouts, let it just run. And then if you have failures, if you're using Windows AutoPatch, you can contact our support team and we'll help you work through those challenges. For those of you who are low on resources and have access to AutoPatch, it's a great option. You do that right in the portal once you've onboarded release management feature updates, and you can go in here and just create a new release. And you go through the process of just picking what your target version will be, aligning that up to your existing AutoPatch groups, and then going through and just designing how you want your phases and your schedules to run. You can default all of it and just let it run. One of the things that we found that are super helpful too, that if you are just in WFB or in Intune today, is complementing that with a DSS policy to adopt a newer version of Windows, especially in this case, Windows 11. We introduced this option where you can actually make Windows 11 available to your end users as an optional update right here. So if you haven't seen this, if you haven't turned it on, for those of you looking to roll out Windows 11, but you want to do it gradual or you want to give your end users the option to just opt in through the Windows updates, check for Windows update section, you can actually turn that on as an optional update in your DSS policies today, which is a great way of like preceding Windows 11 to your end users, giving them the ability to move up. Now you ask, you're like, well, shouldn't I be doing a lot of pre-work? With what we've been working on from the Windows side, and part of being in Windows servicing and delivery, is we don't just engineer and build upgrade processes for just our commercial customers, enterprise environments. We also are responsible for maintaining the estate of all of our consumer products as well. So we take a lot of learnings from automatic upgrades within consumer, we bring those into the more complicated environments in commercial, and then we continue to work on that. And our goal really is a automated, low touch, seamless experience as much as possible, even though Brian might be like laughing at me when I say that, but that's really our goal of what we're working towards. So we have tools out there to help with some of those nerves, help understand a little bit more about what's coming your way. We have tools to help you get the content out there, but we also have some reporting available in Intune today that can provide you a lot of the same insights which we are showing you in SCCM that are amazing. Those two of those are primarily like feature upgrade, device readiness, which will go into whether your devices meet the prerequisites for Windows 11. And what you can do is in this report, just select your OS target version if you're using scopes, or you just use the default. And then you can run a report that will tell you if you have devices that are not compatible or don't meet TPM requirements or anything to that extent. You can actually see that in this report. You can export this report to a CSV, work it as an IT team if you need to. So this is available in Intune today. This data runs on what we call Windows telemetry data. So when we talk about how does Intune collect this information, how is it available in the portal, it actually comes as part of the Windows telemetry service. And people ask, what's the telemetry level I need to make sure this works? It's just basic for most clients. It's just basic data. We'll feed this information into Intune or WFB reports. We also have a second report called the Compatibility Risk Report. And for those of you that did a lot of upgrade readiness between Windows 7 to Windows 10 or different versions of Windows 10 might be familiar with this report. And if you're not, this is a great report to get insights into things that Microsoft kind of knows is problematic. And I'll say it like that. I did air quotes there. These are things that are very commonly known. We saw the DLL, we know the application's installed, we know this exists. Hey, we know this is going to be a problem. Heads up, this is what's going to happen. So in this case, like Logitech Download Assistant on this device is going to be, is actually going to be removed when Windows 11 upgrade occurs. Now, for me as an admin, I'm like, all right, well, great, get rid of it because I don't manage it anyways. But if it's an application that's important for my workload, I would understand that. Now, Intune and the tools that I have in Intune won't take care of that natively, but I could build a package to reinstall that after my Windows 11 deployment. And when they were talking about task sequences, this is where like task sequences can be super strategic, where I know that ahead of time, I'll just reinstall it in my task sequence. So my user never even knows that it was impacted. But those are things to be aware of. In the case of Intune, my recommendation, if you run into this, build the package, make it required, have it evaluate once the user moves into Windows 11. Even better, push it out with Patch My PC or one of those tools, and your users won't likely notice the difference. Another option that we have, we showed you upgrade readiness report, is endpoint analytics that are available in Intune. This gives you the work from anywhere report. This is a great report just to say whether the device is ready for remote work, but it also gives you the Windows 11 readiness status. In this case, I mean, I've only got one device and actually it's a Steam Deck. But it's showing you actually can see whether, and export this list, see whether your devices are ready for Windows 11, and if it's not, what that reason is. So there are various resources in Intune to help you understand like the health of your estate. Now, From the Windows 10 to Windows 11 perspective within Microsoft, we've been working with customers for many years adopting Windows 11, including ourselves inside of Microsoft. And what we found is the ease of transition for in-place upgrade from Windows 10 to Windows 11 has been one of the easiest transitions between OSs that we've ever done. And we consistently are getting better over time. Now, I know that sounds like a broken record. We probably say that every time that, oh, it's so much better this time. But our success rates with in-place upgrade are extremely good. At how do I go to Windows 11? How should I make this transition? Our recommendations are always leveraging the Microsoft native tools as much as possible, leverage the cloud with the reports, and then the Windows Update for Business services to move or transition your devices. Now, with that being said, we do have some great reporting in Windows AutoPatch. I wanted to call out that if you're not using it, but you're entitled to Windows AutoPatch, we do have some great reporting that helps you monitor your transition moving from Windows 10 into Windows 11. And this is where you can track, once you have those new releases built out in your environment, you'll be able to track how you're doing over the last 90 days using Windows Update or Windows AutoPatch reporting. Similarly, we do have great reports available in WFB reports. So these are for all the customers out there that are using Windows Update for Business. Maybe you're not using Intune, maybe you're not using SCCM, but you are using Windows Update for Business. We do have a lot of that data. The gentleman talked about a lot about the Appraiser data, a lot of the data that's stored on the local device. A lot of that makes its way into the Azure Monitor workspace, where WFB reports can provide you a lot of great insights into how your devices are doing. Now, this data, again, is based on telemetry data or sentiment data that is derived from your device, pulled up to Microsoft. It's cleaned up, and then we pump it over to your log analytics workspace in Azure Monitor, and then we actually provide some really great reporting. The great thing about Azure Monitor or WFB reports is it's a no-cost service, so you can use this today without any additional charge. The only time you would accrue additional charge is if you choose to save the data for an extended period of time. There accrues an additional cost for that. But within this report, you have a devices report. You can actually see how you're doing. You can see any of your OSs that are nearing end of service, any active alerts, or any devices that might not make or meet the requirements for Windows 11, such as safeguard holds. This is something that hasn't been really heavily talked about, but a lot of times when you're moving into a Windows new version upgrade, you'll run into things saying like your antivirus is incompatible and it will just kill the upgrade. We used to run into that a lot when we'd run in-place upgrades with SCCM. Setup.exe would just crash, and then when we'd look back, we'd see a safeguard hold in there. If you're looking for the definition of safeguard hold, those are all the items, really the DLLs and processes or applications that have been identified by vendors or Microsoft that are known incompatible to move to that version of Windows 11. Now that list does change. So if you do have like a high list of incompatible, but it's been resolved in, let's say, an update in July, but you're still using a WIM file from February, that's when you'd upgrade your WIM, and it should pull those down offline for offline installation. But if you're using online, they should pull down when they pull updates during the upgrade. So these are a couple of the tools that we just have available to the community. If you're using Intune, I hope you guys can find some really great use out of it. We do have a lot of really great insights coming, especially to support Windows 11 in-place upgrade coming in, first half of next year. That will be exciting to talk about when those come as well. Questions from anyone? I know I talked through that pretty quick. I wanted to be respectful of time.
Yeah, there's some questions in the chat here. I'll see if I can send it to you. But first, just hands up for dark mode. Just want to thank you. That's chef's kiss, a beautiful thing. Your favorite question, the one that every AutoPatch PM loves to have. Do you know what it is? I'm going to see if you can guess yet. No?
Education.
GCC. Oh, you were one. I know that would have been your second guess.
GCC.
Is this in GCC?
We
Uh,
It is not GCC today. We are working on GCC, so it's coming. It's being worked on. We've made publicly that we are working on it, but we aren't publishing the timeline yet, just because when you're working in GCC, sometimes it moves quick, and sometimes for no reason it moves very slow. So
yeah,
we're working on the approvals right now.
fair enough. Somebody asked specifically about the optional update, how you showed that you can deploy Windows 11 as
Yes.
optional. Does that still fall under that same GCC rubric that you just outlined, or do you think it's there?
Yes. Yeah, it falls under the same GCC river. So unfortunately with GCC, I mean, the bar and the requirements are a little bit higher. Everything goes through a review before we can move anything into that space. So, and then it's not just a Microsoft review; it is also a federal review to move into GCC. So, but that work is underway. So we should have, and what I mean by underway means, it's actively being worked on. So,
Okay.
the timeline will be published as soon as we have a set time.
And somebody, on that same thing, someone was wondering, can you have both? What happens if you deploy it as both optional Windows 11 as like available? Sorry, was it optional update and a non-optional update, right? Because you could have two different policies. Do you know how that conflict gets resolved?
Yeah. Yeah, so conflict resolution.
I know.
It's never a great idea
your
to
third
overlap.
favorite question.
Yeah. So it's always gonna take, don't quote me on for the DSS policy. The way DSS policies work in Intune, because they are graph-based policies that run out of the delivery services engine, which is all cloud-based. But those from the Intune side are evaluated and written to your tenant in the delivery services engine. So we take the last written eval. Now, for this specific value, I don't want to tell you that it's going to overwrite it or flip it back. I would say drop that maybe in a way that I can get an answer and get it back to you, because I don't want to say that it's that you're going to be broken one way or the other. The expected behavior is the enforcement that if you do optional, it is the same as doing a regular required update. It's just an option that's there because the enforcement of that update comes from your ring policy in your deferrals and your deadlines that you defined in the ring policy. So really, in my opinion, when you're building your DSS to target what OS version to go to, it's a win-win to add optional in there because it just makes it available for people to self-serve. And then when your enforcements kick in, then they're going to kick in all the same. Does that make sense, Brian?
Yeah.
Did I make that clear?
Okay. That's along what I would have guessed, but
Cool.
Since you're here, I figured I don't have to guess. So why guess? And then related, one last one is just like in that optional if it is an optional update, do the users get a notification about that update, right? Or would they have to like go seek it out in the Windows Update UI?
Today, it's going to be seek it out under Windows updates. So we don't do a toast notification saying, hey, you have this update available. Though that is great feedback. I'll pass it back to the team that manages that and be like, see if that's on our backlog. Make it an optional notification to the user. Maybe put a schedule behind it, which would be kind of cool. So
okay. And then we had a couple of questions as your favorite question about education, and I will let you choose whether you want to rehash that discussion or not. I have no opinion there.
I'll say this for education from a Windows update perspective, like all of our customers are incredibly important to us. And so we are working on capabilities and improving the experiences for all customers, whether you're just using Intune, whether you're using WFB delivery services entitlement, or you have AutoPatch entitlements. in either one of those, we are working on improvements across the stack for each one of those customers. So what I would say to the education folks is, you may not have AutoPatch as an entitlement, but there is love coming to you under WOOF BDS for sure. And so there are additional capabilities and stuff like that. So we haven't forgot about you. We do care about you. I would even go as far as we do love our education customers. So, you're top of mind for us.
All right. Thank you so much, Adam. I know it is now getting super late. It's not super late. It's late for our next speaker, Jorgen. He is looking to get his beer, I'm sure, or maybe he already has. I'd totally allow it.
No, not yet. Not yet. I'm waiting. So that will be after his session. So.
Okay.
So that will be interesting. Oh, sorry, Brian.
Yes. No. So I just wanted to say thanks, Adam, for answering those questions and for showing us around there. I hand it off to you, Jorgen.
Yeah, thank you. It's an honor being here in this company as well, and it's hard to follow after Adam and all the other good stuff that's been showed. So I'm gonna try to show something that hasn't been shown. So let's see how this works out and talk about things. So what are we seeing at least? Well, to start with, you've all heard it. Windows 11 is the best version of Windows 10 that's released. You heard that a lot of times now, but I'm going to show why as well soon. What we see right now when we talk to customers, the whole discussion on app compatibility, it's just eliminated. We don't hear it anymore because it's already been tested by someone, most likely. What we see, though, is still hardware requirements is still a big thing. Many organizations suffer from post-COVID investment stops and have an basically old machines. Right? We have some branches where we have certification of software, which actually doesn't allow you to install it, even if it works. You can't move until it's CE certified, for example, which also made that some customers are late to the ball to upgrade as well. We have a lot of customers transitioning to Autopilot and Endra joined at the same time, which is maybe a bigger task than you expect, because there are so many integrations with Configuration Manager and all the stuff that we don't realize when you start looking at it to start. Drivers and firmwares not updated in years. So you deployed a machine 2 years ago, you haven't updated the drivers and firmware, then you will have an issue upgrading the machine. VDI solutions that lacks TPM support. And then in the end, this is actually what we see every day now. We see like almost at some customers, we see like 10% of the devices where site support or service desk or someone fiddled with secure boot to make sure that it actually boots. And then we have a problem upgrading it because it doesn't support secure boot anymore. So that's basically things we see and most of these are possible to solve. Right? Windows 11 is the best version of Windows 10. We just look in the registry, it's still Windows 10, right? It's Windows 10 Enterprise and it's release ID 2009. So that's basically where the world stopped for those two values. All applications looking at those values, it's still Windows 10. So Windows 11 is the best version of Windows 10, right? There's no doubt about it. It's proven, I would say, as well. This is for my own machine, actually, as well. So I'm really sure it's proven as well. So that's for one, right? And it's great for compatibility. And it's important, as we have some applications looking at the wrong place. So I did this a year ago, actually, almost by the date. I was presenting at an event, so I asked the question, and the question is really, really bad asked. I know I shouldn't have put WOOF-B and feature updates, but never mind. So I asked exactly the same question yesterday, and the results is actually incredibly alike, right? It's crazy. So it's 1 year apart, but the result is almost the same. So I assume everyone that moved fast to Intune is there, and I assume everyone is moving now, or it's exactly the same people who responded to both polls, right?
Can we just have a moment of silence for those trying to do this with WSUS?
I know. I had to add that as well. But that's actually, if you look, it's actually
I'm sorry.
1% less, right? So that's good.
Yes, that's an improvement, but it's like, man, those 3%.
Yeah, but I mean, it's good to see how people are doing it, I would say. I would like to have a lot of other questions, right? But X doesn't allow me to do more. So, but this is still a good show of where at least my followers are. That could be, yeah. Let's move on instead. So talking about that and taking that to the next level. When we talk about upgrading using Configuration Manager, I've been using task sequences for years, and it's amazing because you can do everything you like. The problem is also that we had downtime for the end user, which is in some case at some customers very, very expensive as well. So if you haven't tried out using the built-in Windows servicing or move the workload to Intune, I would actually challenge you to test Windows servicing because it will do all the job in the background. If it fails due to a blocker, the end user will never know that it failed. They're not interrupted at all. It will also download, but I will come to that as well. If you enable dynamic updates, so a lot of the orange ones and driver issues, if there's a driver needed to be updated on the device and it's in Windows Update, the Windows servicing will pull that driver down, update the driver, and then be able to upgrade to Windows 11. So we see a huge success rate as well when we do Windows servicing. We did the same for customers that were late for Windows, going from Windows 7 to Windows 10. Instead of building a complex task sequence, we just pushed Windows servicing to all devices and upgraded the whole estate in a week. And we had maybe 1% fail rate or something like that, because the dynamic updates will actually fix drivers, software it will fix everything. So, but you also need to take into account that if you're not updating the media used by servicing in Configuration Manager, the amount of data it will pull from internet is actually more than it pulls from the distribution point in updated media. So you must take that into account if you have network infrastructure. But for me, working with endpoint management for, I'm not going to say how long, but it's getting close to 30 years. I still think end user experience is better, right? That's really important as well to keep our end users productive. And the problem with the task sequence is that parts of it run in your face and servicing in the background. I'm not going to go down any more on that. Safeguard holds. I know Adam mentioned they exist. Every time there's a new version of Windows released, everyone is complaining on X that safeguard holds is blocking me. I'm sorry, but I don't know what the complaints are about. Safeguard holds is the best thing ever happened to the upgrade process because, again, we won't break stuff. So safeguard holds blocks you from breaking your machines, basically. So we love safeguard holds. I couldn't find a picture with more than 2 thumbs. I guess nobody has more than 2 thumbs, so I think it's okay.
You should just
have
to ask AI, Jorgen. Just ask AI to be like, give me a hand, and it'll give you like 5 thumbs. It's like the default thing it does.
Yeah, true. But if we look at safeguard holds, then if we go back to what we saw in the beginning with the Appraiser running, that actually writes to WMI, but it also actually writes to the registry as well. So if we look here, we have a red upgrade error. So we can actually troubleshoot that locally if you like. So if you remote control a machine or remotely troubleshoot it, you can actually see it as well. So it's actually written to the registry as well. To a red upgrade experience, the reason is TPM. If there's a gated block or a safeguard hold, it will be documented like this. So it will say like block ID, and then it begins to be fun to get out what that ID is, right? So we can actually see if we can connect to that device. So let's start here. So if I look here, the same information we had before in WMI and in Configuration Manager, we actually have in the registry as well. So here we have the compatibility information for Windows 11 23H2 and 22H2. And we can see that it's TPM and the upgrade is red. So we can actually troubleshoot this on the machine. So if we just kick up the scheduled task that was shown before, it will actually update in 30 seconds a minute, and we can actually see if we resolved the issue, whatever it is, if it's secure boot or TPM or whatever it is. Right? On this machine, I don't have any gated block ID, but I prepared it to start with. So fellow community here, Gary Block, has a great script where he actually put together a database of safeguard holds. So you can actually run it like this. I'm cheating now because I entered a safeguard hold in the script. But basically it will ask and say, okay, so I got this safeguard hold. I got the safeguard hold with this ID, and I get back that it's the HP Cross Intel device with TBT that I need to upgrade. I have the link to that script in the presentation for you as well. It's actually a good time saver as well to actually see what the problem is and resolve those ones, right?
I just threw his blog post in the chat.
Excellent, even better. So let's see if I can do like this without ending the whole stuff. So that was a part of the safeguard holds, and this is sample output from the script, right? So we actually can see that we have the Microsoft IPP class, then we remove the driver if we do what we want. And there's the link up there as well. The whole database is actually in a JSON file, so you can actually query it if you like as well. So then we go back to drivers and firmware updates, right? If we never done that before, that will block you as well. Windows servicing and dynamic updates will save you. Windows Update for Business will save you. But if you import an old Vim file in Configuration Manager, you will still be blocked, as Adam said. Then the fix isn't implemented in the Vim file, right? So for drivers and firmware updates, we've been doing everything you can think of in the book to upgrade it on the devices, right? If we can move the workload if you're co-managed to Intune. We can use a script. We can use all the vendor-specific solutions. Basically, if we do this, we have a script where we basically just remove some registry values, run a PowerShell script that updates all the drivers, and then do it, and then put the values back. Right? And there's a lot of meaning on, but it's dangerous to upgrade firmware, and machines can break, and drivers and BitLocker recovery. When we move driver management to Windows Update or to Intune, if we take a customer with like say 4,000 devices, we had one call to service desk when we updated firmware and drivers on all machines for the first time in years using Intune. And that was one specific driver for a specific machine that required the power to be connected to the laptop. So the woman calling service desk wasn't actually complaining that we broke something. She complains that she got the prompt that she need to reboot and reboot and reboot and reboot. So we never broke a machine. The only thing we did is, so the driver failed to install because the power wasn't connected. Next time the machine scan, it says, oh, you need this driver, and then it failed because power wasn't connected. So we had one call in 4,000 devices, and we upgraded BIOS and drivers and everything. So it actually works way, way better than we can imagine. So if you haven't tried it out, I urge you to try it out. And then we go back to if we've updated drivers and firmware, then there's one less reason to use task sequences, which is in your face. And again, use everything that Microsoft built in dynamic updates and servicing instead. There's an important KB article that Brian loves for Configuration Manager to fix if you want to move just the driver workload and Defender updates, but that's a different topic. Because so basically what you need to know if when you implement these 4 registry values are no longer managed by Configuration Manager. So you need to do that yourself. This is from the machine I just deployed. So they are not setting it anymore. If they're set, it's going to stay there. But if you redeploy the machine, they're gone. So you need to configure this and decide where you want your updates to come from. But it's a good thing as well, because it gives us more control and it's more predictable than it's been for a while. So absolutely. So when we talk about, for me, Windows 11 is everything about user experience. I still think this is the one feature that should be turned on all Windows 11 devices by default. Because it actually doesn't take up any state you use for anything else. So basically, if I can get to my machine again without being thrown out, it will actually. I actually turn it on in Intune. I use a policy, and on premise I use a PowerShell script, because there's nothing you can do with that estate anyway on the start menu. So not using this and helping our users is basically a waste, I would say. So what we're talking about is these folders down here, which every time I come to end user's machine, I'm always missing settings there because it's so convenient, right? And there's nothing else you can do with that estate. So I wish that would be turned on by default. And there's so many other things we can do with recommended and pinned and help the end user to make the right, to give them a better experience to start with. So basically, it's behind all the other windows. This is interesting. See if I can do it like, no, I can't. Okay, back to this one instead. So basically the end user can't turn this on, but I think this is important as well. So if we want to set the defaults, I created a script you can run where you actually can run it and just set all the defaults so the end user can set them back afterwards. For like start more pins, remove Copilot if you like, remove everything else, move the start menu, whatever your preference is. And we can also run this for all existing users on the machines which already have a profile. And why is that important? Well, and then we have all the built-in apps as well, of course, which are huge, which we also maybe still want to remove. I do, because they take up bandwidth to update. Today, everything is a security risk as well. So I try to remove everything as well. So my segue to this is, how do we do that when we do an in-place upgrade, right? Well, we have two different ways of doing it. One is using setupconfig.ini, which is a leftover from WVSUS, which actually gives us control of the whole upgrade process. Or we use something called success CMD, or we can do failure as well if we like, but I prefer success. So we aim for success, right? So basically you can put all the commands in there and then they run after the upgrade, right? And then going back to using servicing instead of task sequences. So if we upgrade drivers and firmware before we have solved application compatibility, we can, and then the last thing is to actually customize the operating system as we like. And we can do that using these two options instead. So then we can't do everything in the task sequence, but we can still be in total control, I would say. So getting there, basically we put the file called setupconfig.ini in the WVSUS folder. And here we can actually control the whole upgrade process. So here we can say that I want to run a command called setup complete. And if it fails, I want to run this. And here I can rebrand Windows, remove my apps. I can do everything I like. And here you can actually see the dynamic update as well, which is really important and which is the thing that actually gives us a much higher success rate than a traditional task sequence. See it is like everything you need to do in the task sequence before upgrading. Dynamic update does that for you basically when it comes to drivers and compatibility. The second option is to use the Success CMD. So I put it in a folder with the grid. I put it in run because I like to have it there, and then I run my commands there instead. I use this for my modern devices as well. So when a device is deployed with autopilot, I just have a PowerShell script and a detection method in a Win32 app that pulls down my Success CMD I want to use for the next upgrade of Windows. So then every time you do a feature update through Intune as well, you still can be in control of what is happening afterwards. So that's actually really, really cool, I would say. I'll be doing this on my Insider machine, which I upgrade every week. Keep in mind, these files are not triggered when you do an EKB upgrade with only the hotfix, only the small upgrade where you have all the files before in the upgrade already. So it only works for a full feature upgrade. But it's actually great. So we actually get all this stuff and we have control of the process, right? So to sum up my little section, I think I'm pretty good on time as well. As I said, we hardly see application compatibility anymore. What we see is customers moving to a modern managed device, and then there can be some application compatibility for single sign-on and so on. Hardware is still an issue. Soft certification of software for healthcare, production, specialized environment is still a problem as well. You need to contact your vendor. Even if it works, you are not allowed to use it, basically. Update drivers and firmware, that's security related as well. I know Brian likes security updates. Look at all the vulnerabilities in drivers and firmware every month. We really want to do that on a scheduled monthly basis now. Anyway, in the world we live in, which everyone don't want to do good things. And then make sure that your hardware is correctly configured, because machines can show up in the non-compatibility report because they're wrongly configured as well. And take the time to actually configure the Windows 11 end user experience as well. So with that, I hope I've challenged some of you to try servicing and try updating and given you some tips on setupconfig.ini, Success CMD and customizations as well.
Yeah, thanks, Jorgen. I've been tracking some questions that I think are good for you. So
nice.
So somebody asked, and this is kind of very an open-ended question, and anyone can jump in, Adam. But I mean, so somebody has said he has configured telemetry via GPO, but he's not getting any of the Appraiser app keys. So he's not seeing that data. Any tips?
I've seen a lot of different reasons. Network, a lot of strange reasons as well. But it's hard to say why.
Yeah, I know.
DNS filtering.
Yeah.
What was that, Adam? EMS?
I was gonna say DNS filtering too. So we see it at
yeah.
DNS filtering. What Jorgen was saying around, application gateways are commonly blocked. Telemetry runs under system context out to the internet. So if you're using like a user authenticated proxy, a lot of times system context traffic will get blocked, and that's very common as well.
Another question this is for everyone. I mean, languages. And sorry, I don't know if anybody actually spoke about the fun of doing languages, because I was busy doing the Q&A. But somebody specifically talking about, I got simplified Chinese and I moved to Windows 11, and then it blows away my language settings. Any fun experiences dealing with language packs?
We have a lot of scripts solving that in different ways, absolutely. But it's not fun, that's for sure.
Is there?
Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, it's hard to give a better answer.
Yeah.
Than that.
Do you have a preferred? Do you have a preferred solution? Like maybe it's just scripts. Maybe that is your answer.
If we're on premise, it's 100% script. If we're more modern, it's handled differently now, so it actually works better. But still, there's all the stuff with automatically uninstalling unused languages, and yeah, it's really interesting to do that.
Yeah. Okay. Another one talking about in-place upgrades. So I couldn't presume they're talking about task sequences. I think that's kind of what they mean when they do in-place upgrade from Win10 to Win11 over the internet. So A, is anybody doing that? And do we have a sense for like how long will that kind of task sequence take?
We are absolutely doing that after COVID. That was like, here you go, solve this problem. So yeah, absolutely. But the problem with that is basically that it all depends on the internet connection. Not all, but mostly on the internet connection, which is really hard. In Sweden, I have gigabit in both directions for like $20 a month. So I mean, we are very lucky compared to many countries. So it will be a bandwidth challenge.
Yeah, I feel you. A bunch of people asked if you had, you mentioned a couple of scripts in your presentation there. I don't know if you have a link to where they would find those scripts.
I have some links. I can sort them out later.
Okay.
I'm not sure which was updated last, but there's a lot of them out there, absolutely.
And somebody asked, is there a best practice around BitLocker before upgrading to 11? Very specifically, should we suspend BitLocker? And I don't think
if you use servicing, that will take care of all that for you.
Right. But not if.
But if you're using the task sequence,
that logic is built. That logic is built into. I was going to say the logic is built into setup.exe to suspend BitLocker for the reboots when they occur.
Okay, this is about AutoPatch. Is there any logic behind? Can you explain the logic, Adam, behind the grouping? So I know AutoPatch kind of, and I think the answer is it kind of just does it randomly initially, and then you can move it around. There is some control. I know that's kind of a vague question, but it's the one I was saying.
We'd refer to it as like dynamic allocation across the designated rings in your AutoPatch group that you define. And the dynamic allocation, essentially, Brian, is first in, first out. So as we evaluate the devices, we allocate them until we hit the proper allocation, and then we add to the other rings. So there is no like intelligence based on device or driver or application audience. It's really just making sure you have a proper allocation percentage wise. If you are looking for like a better allocation of applications drivers in like to dynamically distribute against a population that properly represents using oh my word, I just totally forgot not phased rollouts, but can someone help me with this? In feature updates, we have the ability to do multiple release it over multiple groups, and that team's gonna kill me for forgetting the name of their feature. If you give me a minute, I'll go pull it. But the feature essentially, we built logic into Windows. I know, right? But we built logic into the ability for us to evaluate it within Windows Update for Business. We can evaluate the estate that you're running in, and we'll actually release your feature update through various phases, not using the AutoPatch phases, but the gradual rollout. That's what it is. Thank you, Brian. Gradual rollout. And if you use gradual rollout, we do evaluate against applications, drivers, and hardware types to properly represent those across the different gradual rollouts. Though we don't yet expose any of that logic publicly, so it's kind of take our word for it.
So I think this is a good place to end it. I want to send a specific thank out to Adam and Jorgen for joining us. Those you may not know, we literally only asked them days ago. So thanks for stepping up and killing it. Also thanks to John and Gavin and Andy from the Advanced Insight team for their effort. I don't know if Corey, you want to come off and say anything else, but if not, thanks for coming. Thanks for joining us. Good luck in the next 412 days. We wish you the best.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.